Jesus said to St. Faustina, "I cannot love a soul that is stained with sin, but when it repents, there is no limit to my generosity." And I think one of the most generous cardinals I've ever met, in fact he's the only cardinal I've ever met, is our next speaker, Cardinal Mafi. He is a very humble cardinal, a cardinal who knows the people, who's at the people's level, who understands mercy, and is a great witness to as Apostle of Mercy, as all our archbishops are here today and all our speakers. But in a special way, he's had a big impact on my life interiorly because of the great love he has for mercy, the humanness of him. We have had great times together, had great fun, he has a great sense of humour, and I'm certain you're going to love this man just as much as all the people of Tonga love him. Tongan people, do you love the Cardinal? Yes. You've got to do better than that. Do you love the Cardinal? Yes. All righty, you were just about to be excommunicated then. Could you please welcome Cardinal Mafi? Thank you.
Thank you very much, John. I must say that the last few days I was really, really honored to be with John and the rest of the Divine Mercy team, because he did ask me in his invitation on behalf of the Divine Mercy Australia to come to this Congress, and he also asked if I can come before the actual weekend. So I said yes to John. Therefore, I must say, as he just said, the last 3 or 4 days, being together with the team, it's reminded me that mercy, or the love of God really, it has to be manifested or shown, especially in the key Catholic word is communio. In other words, in a community. How can you experience love if you are on your own, especially in this world of individualistic mentality? So I must thank John especially for the invitation, that so numerous experiences of even laughter and the joy, the little gesture of showing mercy. We were living together in Nazareth House in Ballarat, and then we moved to another St. Philip Blackburn in Paris. All this was really, really great experience. And I remember one of these joyful moments as he was our driver at the same time. And somehow someone in the team came up with this famous Elvis song. I think Lesina started with this morning. It's now or never. So he drove us and he kept singing. When he saw us kind of tossed away sleeping, he all of a sudden he said, "It's now or never." It somehow indirectly introduced me to be convinced of my topic, which the topic says, time is ripe. It is now. And he even teased me, I said, we heard in Tonga there's no such time as a time. I don't know where he learned it from, but really we call it, in general speaking, Pacific days, Pacific time, which is, if we say 2 o'clock we start, that means 3 o'clock or 4 o'clock. So it was kind of a challenging to me, the topic, which is the overall theme. Now is the time for mercy. But it was, again, part of my experience and learning time, because really, to me, as that is one of the essential reasons why I chose this topic, because I thought about it well when John asked me, it's up to you, whatever the topic. So I was caught up with our theme for the weekend. Time is now. Now is the time for mercy. So I just twisted it a little bit. Time is ripe. In the Pacific, we love when fruits are ripe. It is now. Because as I thought of the kind of a concept in the Pacific, there's no such thing as time, generally speaking, not always true. Really, when they say Tongan time, if we say 4, that means 6, it's really the concept is a delay. And delay, if you all know, really, in a world that the devil, and by the way, Pope Francis, a lot of commentators critique him because from day one of his pontificate, he talks a lot about the devil, about Satan. But he meant business here for our world today. Because somehow the devil, as we know, he got so many tactics. And one of those is the so-called delay tactic. There is a famous Chinese saying, I think the whole concept of spying during wartime drew from that old Chinese saying, if you want to win a war, know yourself and know your enemy. That's why I think Pope Francis hammer home again. Church, this big giant who is in slumber. That's the consequence of delaying. We delay, and end up cancellation of things. The devil loves that. And I think that's why Pope Francis brings back, because it's not a new thing to us in the church. I think we have exorcist here, Father Laurie. He seemed to bring that back because I think we all have read from Sister Faustina. This seemed to be the last struggle of the devil. The war has been conquered. This seemed to be his last struggle. And he would use every opportunity. To me, that's why our topic, our whole theme, is quite relevant. In order to combat this smart, tricky little devil. He will use, especially if God's people are just like the Tongan. The Tongan, we better wake up. We heard Archbishop Alapati last night in the introduction. We got work to do, folks. We must wake up from this slumber. He has conquered it. He just called you and me to be messengers and not allow the tricks of this so-called Satan. If Faustina has won it and other saints, we are saints of today. We got everything. This morning we hear the talk about the saints and the tremendous richness of the church. You just tap into it. It's under your fingertips. So I think the devil is just frightened, scared. But for us to wake up, time is ripe. Kairos. I don't have to go with my scripture professor, Archbishop Balapa, that you respect to be here. But that was one of the key words he taught us in Kairos, God's time. It's now, it's an eternal now. There is no such thing as a past and a future. It's just a concept in the thinking. But what matters is really about now, now, now. So don't delay this eternal now. Now the time is ripe. Kairos, God's time. This is the most acceptable time, as St. Paul says, one of his apostles. This is the only, there won't be tomorrow. The now would be tomorrow's tomorrow, but we just have the now. God only dwells in the now. Each time we come to the table of the Lord, there is another key word. Archbishop taught us, I can still recall, it's a very important part of the Eucharist, which we just had today. The memorial, and the key word in Greek here, anamnesis. Am I right, Professor Archbishop Alapati? Anamnesis is not merely recalling something that happened in the past. In the Jewish concept of anamnesis or time, it's now. The past is make present now. So it's a key moment. So that is why it is important, our topic. It's now, really, or never. My predecessor had a little key word in this. I heard it when he was still a bishop. Whenever his workers would hear Bishop Finau said, din, that means do it now, no delay. And he was quite an effective administrator. And I remember the director of the youth, whenever he hears Bishop Finn now, he said, Lonnie, tinja. That means he has to do it now. So this is the whole call that Faustina experienced. This is how urgent, and Pope Benedict used that key word, urgency. Urgency, whenever when we in the streets or you're going fast and you see the siren going, or from the hospital, that means emergency. Pope Benedict used in many of his encyclicals, wake up, it's urgent time. It's all about the present. Wake up because we won't be another tomorrow. Don't give a chance, as Faustina experienced, for the devil, for his smart little trick using our delay for his own tactic to get us. So we are in a world, as other speakers has mentioned, so wounded, gloomy. It's a trial time. We are in a very difficult time, worldwide, church-wise. But divine mercy and the whole message is somehow in a culmination of that. This is paradoxically the right time. He seemed to be waiting for us to experience that wound. Pope Francis, another famous phrase come up. Well, some people critique him, but he said, I just want a church that is bruised, defeated, been knocked down, even humiliated. Isn't that what the wounded bishop talked about? The most shameful moment and yet redeeming moment on the cross. So somehow Faustina, and in her diary, kind of recalling, challenging us, reminding us not to give up hope even in your own miseries, your own experience of being defeated, mocked, ridiculed. That's what the church is going through now. I have my own experience I like to quickly share. Very humiliating experience. I was supposed to head to Rome last year, go on a dicastery meeting. I have to check up with my older brother, he's a medical doctor. So we ended up both went to the hospital because I wasn't feeling well. But then we had to make a decision. He said, bro, are you still going? And I said, I must still go. I have to go. So we said goodbye. So flew over to New Zealand, supposed to stay there a few hours, then on to Rome. I collapsed. If you Google my name, I want to get that fellow who mentioned the Cardinal collapse in Auckland. And that's what happened. I collapsed. Ended up in Middlemore Hospital. So I wrote quickly, tell Rome, Cardinal of Tonga Pacific won't come. So everything was arranged. He said to me, we'll pray for you during our meeting. Look after yourself. Anyway, I ended up in Middlemore Hospital. I rushed there. The following morning, this nurse came and said, Cardinal, because everybody, how the news spread quickly. Oh, there's a Cardinal here in the hospital. And I remember as I was rushing the emergency in the ambulance, everybody started looking and staring. So, the next morning was supposed to be wheelchair. I said to the nurse, Miss, no, I can walk. She said, please, Cardinal, you have to be on the wheelchair. You almost died yesterday. That was the beginning of humiliation, on the wheelchair. So I start rolling, all the people say, hi, Cardinal, hi, Cardinal. No more, I am the Cardinal, and I'm picking the... All of a sudden, I was just like the rest. It was a humbling experience. I said to myself, Lord, you work in mysterious ways. Then I recall what Pope Francis said. I would like a church. He even challenged the bishops. Come and go to the sheep and even smell like sheep. Your chair's been hot, been sitting there a long time. So I had that experience, being humble. And yet, that is where the real challenge is. I know that John had warned us to, beware of the time. There's so many things we can share. But this key theme that I had chosen, time is ripe. It is now. Our world desperately needs that message. We somehow forgotten about it. We have become too proud of ourselves. Renaissance and enlightenment, yes, science had brought blessing to the world. But up to a point now, we become so proud of our achievement. Up to a point now, we make God number 2. Then we ourselves become number 1. Jesus in the gospel, how many times he even talks about the kingdom of God through parables with this concept of urgency. The kingdom of God is like a rich man. He accumulated all the goods and wealth, and up to a point he was so proud, and he just said, now I got everything. I just sleep and have party and drink and enjoy. At the end, the parable, Jesus said, he was a fool. Why? The next day, he was gone. Now I call you. You finish your life. That is somehow where we are in our world today. We just forgotten where we come from, where it all started, even the wealth and the blessings of this world. In other words, we tend to our little slumber. We love our little sleep. But thank God, this big giant, I love this new evangelization, Father Gino, in those, I think maybe you still recall, he went around the Pope and then John Paul II sent him around in the Pacific, and Gino went around trying to promote new evangelization. And we love the analogy he used. He said, the church is like a big giant, meaning, the organization-wise, big, cannon lower, systematic, it's like an organization. It's very, everything is in order and so forth, a number of other reasons. But the only downfall or weakness of this big giant is sleeping, just like the Tongans. Then Gino said, wake up, big giant. Wake up from your slumber. And this is really what divine mercy is saying. Mercy is an old message. Good news has been 2,000 years. There's nothing new about divine mercy. What seemed to be new is because of this situation in our world today that somehow can be summed up in this simple word, sin. We turn to our own selves, being selfish, uncaring, unloving. And no wonder Pope Francis declared this divine mercy jubilee here, because he sees that there is lack of tenderness. People become too onto their own little private life. Everybody talks about the right of the person and right of so many, even right of the little dog, or right of, and lack this dimension of relationship to others. That's why love has become stale. And fittingly and timely, this whole message, divine mercy, just bring a little flesh, just bring a little bit of warmth, a little bit of a human dimension, reminding ourselves we are called to love. We are made to love, but love is somehow a little bit stale, cold. So it's just a new call for us to be workers of building this human relationship, because God, whenever 2 or 3 gather, he is there. So it's a big reminder, challenging, and yet we can make it because others have made it. I like to round up a little story. I know this is all personal, because I'm still kind of wondering why I ended up here with Divine Mercy. So I remember, I think it was 2007, when I received this invitation. Well, it's a letter saying, you are appointed to be a bishop, but you have to keep quiet till a certain date was given to me, was the 29th of June. And that was my date of ordination as a priesthood. 29th of June, Peter and Paul feast day. So imagine I kept quiet for 1 month. I hear people's story in Tonga talking about who's going to be. Only myself knew it. But I kept quiet, waiting, praying, reflecting. So when it came to that 29th of June, I was in my older brother's house as a medical doctor. Please, Laumano, be prepared. Don't be pumped. You were just a witness here. I got a little niece here. This is the daughter of my older brother, because this is what really happened on that morning. I was teaching in the seminary then, and I was on a sabbatical leave from the seminary after 7 years in the formation program. So I decided to have a little break. And that's when I was caught. I was caught in Tonga when I was starting my sabbatical. And that particular morning I woke up, it was 29th of June, because that would be the date they will announce in Rome. And that's when I would be allowed to share. So I woke up on that morning in my brother's house. My little niece, she was young, much younger those days, she's big now. She was getting ready to go to school, Tonga High School. And I decided to show the letter to my older brother. So I came, he was making breakfast for my niece. So I said, Mafi, please, let's have a look at that. Mafi, unfold the envelope. Just look at that. The statement that you will be called. And he looked at me. I always consider my older brother, he's been in university life for years in New Zealand and ended up a medical doctor there. And, he goes to church, don't tell my brother. But he had a critical mind. He always critique things about the faith. We also have some debates at home. I try to be philosophical and theological, but he comes with scientific things. But anyway, he looked at me, reading the, look at me. And this is the word, and the witness is still my niece there. And that's when my niece was coming, she was trying to change to school, but when she came to join us for breakfast, she saw us both crying. And then my brother put his right hand on my shoulder. To me, that was the end of my critiquing my brother as never go to churches. Because to me, that was one of the beginning of Divine Mercy. He touched me on the shoulder. He said to me, Jesus is touching you. Now, why don't you still remember? Jesus is touching you. In other words, to remind me, it's not a call, a private call. Jesus is using you. I'll never forget that was the first homily given to me before I was called a bishop. The rest of the story I can tell you because I left from my home, my brother's home, and went to see my mom. That's another story. But for the time being, I'll leave it here because I'm so convinced this is just the beginning. Jesus is still using me. Jesus is still using you all, calling you in your own ways that the other speakers have spoken about, to be messengers of Divine Mercy. God bless you all. Thank you.